All right. Okay. Hi, y'all. My name is Shane Brody. I'm a trans man. I've been traveling around the U.S. talking to trans, intersex, non-binary, gender non-conforming people and parents and allies, and it's been really great. Today we're in a city park, and this particular town does a lot of maintenance on their parks, and that is happening this morning. But that's okay. It's pretty glorious, as you see in the background. Look at all that green. Look at the beautiful sunshine peeking through the clouds. It's so beautiful here. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to my guest, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Miles. I'm 33 years old, living out of Boise, Idaho area. I am FTM, and I have been in my hormonal transition for 6 years, expressively transitioning for almost 10.
Okay, so before taking testosterone, you were socially transitioning.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what did that look like for you?
For me, it was just a huge confidence booster, being able to align with how I always seen myself.
But what did that entail? For instance, did you change your name or?
I was just out to like certain friends and
Okay.
like basically inner circle stuff. But,
Okay.
not family, because they unfortunately couldn't accept me for being a queer daughter, so they have no idea about like my transition now.
Oh, so they don't know that you've transitioned?
No.
Oh, okay. Are they from here, from Idaho?
No, I'm actually originally from Virginia. So.
Oh. Wow, that's quite a ways away. It's 2,500 miles or something.
Yeah, 2,500 miles. Yeah, 2,800, something like that.
Yeah. That's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Actually, my parents didn't know either because I basically didn't have a relationship with them. So,
Yeah.
that's extra information that they just didn't get. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Yeah, but that can be hard too, like not having family support. Did you find that difficult at all?
Not really, because
No?
unfortunately, a lot of my family is very toxic and thrives off that drama environment.
Okay.
So I was like, no, I don't want to be the headline of your story, and just like separated myself. So.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, sometimes that's what's required, Even if people are biologically related to you, that doesn't mean that they're good for you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I noticed too that you have long hair.
I do.
That's unusual for somebody who is a trans man. I've met a few trans men with long hair, but not too many.
Yeah, it's totally a comfort thing for me. I don't know why. I have shaven my head before, and I just see too much resemblance of my biological parents.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I don't.
Okay. So you catch yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, there's my dad or somebody.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's my mom for me. And I'm like, no, that registers pretty female, so let me like try to do something else.
Yeah. Well, you have beautiful hair. I mean, it's like a strawberry blonde. And
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Natural, thankfully.
Yeah. My hair was kind of that color when I was younger, and then it turned browner and browner on top.
Oh, yeah.
But I had a very, very bright red beard
Yeah.
when I was younger. It's now turning a bit white, which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s. It's about time, right?
Oh, you look great for your 50s.
Yeah. Well, I'm not very healthy though, unfortunately, but I'm working on it. Yeah, that's what happens when you avoid medical care, or I've actually been turned away from a lot of medical care too. Have you had that experience?
Actually, I have a
Yeah.
lot here in the state of Idaho.
Yeah, tell me about that. It's pretty common for trans people, actually.
Yeah. I have been to primary care providers that don't want to refer you to somebody and then also don't want to treat you. I've seen.
So they say, "Oh, I can't deal with this. I'm gonna farm you out to somebody else." Okay.
Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we actually have to go to other states like Utah to
Really?
receive quality medical care.
Oh my goodness, y'all. If people in Idaho are going to Utah, which is also a conservative state.
It is.
Uh,
But they got the university there.
Okay.
And it's very progressive, and they have trans programs
Oh, great.
at Salt Lake City.
Great.
So.
Yeah, there's some interesting things about Utah. Like they also have Housing First initiatives
They do.
that are really aggressive, that put people who are chronically homeless, they work with them to get them into housing immediately, you know, so that they don't have so much of a chronic homelessness problem. I mean, it's really interesting because then it's so conservative on top of that.
I know. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's
It's
wild.
strange.
But I'm glad that at least you can do that.
Yes.
It's several hours of driving away.
It's about 6.
Yeah, and that's going 80 miles per hour out here.
Oh, yeah. And if you're not going higher than that, then you get ran off the road.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. If you were back in the mid-Atlantic states where you're at, you're going across several states.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. All right. So you were treated pretty well in Utah then?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. They have been the only medical providers to actually take me seriously. So.
Okay. When you say taken seriously, what does that mean?
Well, for instance, I am chronically ill, and I have been referred to 2 different neurologists here in the state of Idaho. None of them have been helpful whatsoever. They don't want to run testing. They just look at you, and you're like, I can't help you. This isn't my specialty.
So it's not even like the trans stuff, although that's probably a layer on top of it. It's just basic medical care as well.
Yeah, it's basic medical care, and I also do feel like the transness might have a little bit to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because one of the visits, for instance, happened via Zoom during the pandemic. And you can't really assess somebody through Zoom.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Especially neurological conditions.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to do
especially.
lots of little subtle tests. Yeah, sometimes.
And it was all of a 5-minute Zoom thing.
No.
And I tried to make physical appointments to get in. And then this was a neurologist here in Boise, and I was living down in Twin Falls at the time, which is a 2-hour drive.
Right. That's a much smaller town.
Oh, yes.
Much more conservative, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Not even conservative, I would say far right.
Yes. Absolutely.
Conservative would be more centrist compared to what's going on in Twin Falls.
And every single time I would try to make a physical appointment, the nurses would immediately cancel those physical appointments, saying he doesn't want to see you. There's no reason he shouldn't want to see me.
Okay, so they just kept deferring your
until my
appointments.
referral actually expired. So
And that can take months.
That can take months, absolutely. It takes almost a full year for your referrals to actually default or expire.
Wow, and neurological stuff can be so serious.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was also seen by a neurological professional in Twin Falls, and I gave my concerns, and they also refused to do testing of any kind. I just sat in a room with them, and I told them my concerns, like, well, I have a terminal illness that runs in my family, and I was like, I'm experiencing the same medical path as my mother did, and I'm like really
So you're
concerned.
noticing like the signs and symptoms.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you put me and my mother's medical charts together, they're almost identical.
Okay, yeah.
And she was like, well, I think if you had this illness, you would have been dead by now, and basically like left it at that.
A medical professional said that to you?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's so unprofessional. I mean, that's a way to traumatize somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
But then I've heard horror stories from other patients involving these same doctors, and it's not just the transness, it's Idaho doesn't want a higher disability rate. They
I
don't
see.
want to have to give you money to survive.
I see. Yeah.
So.
Also, I've heard that there are medical professionals who are basically fleeing the state because of bad laws.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have mental health professionals leaving. You have gynecological professionals leaving because they're like, well, we can't do our job. We can't sit here and save the people the way that we vowed to do it.
Yeah, right.
So we're going somewhere else that values our morals. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, not just values your morals, but what you do for a living. I mean, these professionals are providing health care.
Absolutely.
Which, abortion, family planning, all that is part of health care.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And then also trans care, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately here in Idaho, finding genuine trans care is also difficult. For 4 years of,
And what are you talking about when you say genuine trans care?
well, let's just start off with the 4 years in the beginning of my transition.
Okay.
I was seen by a doctor in Twin Falls, not giving names or anything, but they didn't know enough about trans people and were misdosing me.
Oh. Were they giving you what's called a microdose?
Oh no, they were actually overdosing.
Oh, okay.
I was taking 400 milligrams of testosterone per month via shot.
Okay.
And it was a bi-weekly.
Like one shot?
Yeah, 2 shots.
Oh, 2 shots.
So it's 200.
Well, actually, that used to be known as the standard dose.
Yeah.
It's depending on your body, though, it can be an overdose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so during my 1 week cool off, they would send me for my labs and be like, we need to see what your levels are this way.
Sure.
I was over 1,200.
Okay.
Not supposed to be.
Okay. Do you know what the range is supposed to be?
Between 350 to about 600 is
Okay.
where my range
Okay.
is supposed to be.
Okay.
So unfortunately, all of that extra testosterone was reconverting back into estrogen.
Okay.
So that is why like voice dropping really never hit me.
Yeah.
And a lot of other physical things never hit me until about the last year and a half when I switched to a gel version of
Okay.
testosterone.
Yeah.
So it's a daily topical thing. So
Yeah, I just recently got a prescription for the gel, and they've really improved the technology. When I was younger, there was a gel that was out. It was the less expensive version. It was actually, I believe, what they call it, a generic.
Yeah, generic.
A generic, and it had a carrier that was really thick and gooey, and it wouldn't actually dry, and it would get mostly on the inside of your shirt. And I tried the new one though, and it dries like in a few seconds. It's just poof.
Oh,
It's great.
absolutely. It is great. And not only that, it becomes a part of your daily regimen.
Right.
Where the shots, you have to set reminders or alarms. Oh, it's shot day, or oh crap, I missed my shot and I haven't taken it for a month. You know, you get so caught up in life.
And I'll tell you too, there's some fatigue that I've experienced as somebody who's literally given myself hundreds of shots over the years. I started taking testosterone right before my 30th birthday, so I was 29, and I'm 54 now, so it's been quite a few. And after a while, it's just like, oh, I really don't want to give myself another shot.
Absolutely.
So you avoid it. And then it comes to the point that you're talking about where it's like, oh, a couple of weeks have gone by and I'm not feeling so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely one of those things that I started to dread doing. Like, I had to psych myself up. Okay, you got to do it. Like, if you don't do it, then stuff is going to start slowing down again, or you're not going to feel complete anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever faced it when you're months without testosterone.
Oh, yes.
And you're just sitting here and you're going through all these emotional uphills, downhills, everything comes back to light again. And
Well, it can also cause you some problems as well. Like, so I've had a hysterectomy, and also I've had the other parts of that system removed, like my ovaries and tubes and stuff. And so I'm completely dependent physically on the injectables or the gel. And I have anemia now because I was having trouble getting testosterone prescriptions. It can cause all kinds of problems if there's a disruption like that.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually went through the surgical stuff myself back in January, so full hysterectomy.
Yeah.
Nothing is left there anymore.
Yeah. How was your recovery, by the way? It took me a while.
For me, my recovery was smooth.
Yeah.
However, I'm naturally an extrovert and a workaholic, so it was very hard for me to take time to like relax during an abdominal recovery.
Right. And then also, I mean, poverty comes into play there, or not even poverty. If you're just a working class person who, like, people often say this, most people are a check or two away from being homeless.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's absolutely true for many people across America.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have to take time off for major surgery, which this is a major surgery, it's really kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back to work literally 5 days after having a hysterectomy.
Oh my goodness.
And I shouldn't have done that. So when
Yeah.
they tell you to take care of yourself, they really mean take care of yourself.
At least like a month, 6 weeks, something like that. Yeah.
You know, don't walk around a whole lot. Don't be lifting, squatting, all of that stuff, because it can actually have more of a negative recovery.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I found that out the hard way and started bleeding. So.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh no, what did I do? And the only way it would stop is if I actually relaxed. But the more I was up, it would start again.
Okay.
So I was like, when they literally tell you to like not do anything for 2 weeks, don't do anything for those first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then just work yourself back into everything slowly, like a couple hours here and there, but don't go back to standing on your feet 10 hours in 5 days like I did. So.
Yeah. 4, okay. Here we go. Okay. We were backlit a little bit. The sun decided to come out this morning. So I changed the orientation of the camera, and you see less of the park's beauty, but that's okay. So we were talking about surgery. Have you had any other kinds of what they call gender affirming care now? When I did my changes, it was called a sex change, and I think we've changed the language since then.
Yeah. No, I actually am one of the people who don't want to necessarily have bottom surgery, but I do eventually want to get top surgery.
Okay. Could you come in a little bit better?
Yeah.
And could you like flatten this out a little? Yeah. Thank you. I'm trying to cover the table with this beautiful handkerchief that a scout leader gave me, because this is a very well used park, and it looks like people have been having some barbecues out here and stuff. Okay, so you mentioned not wanting bottom surgery. How about top surgery?
Absolutely,
Is this
that's
an
a
okay?
goal.
Is this an okay thing to talk about? By the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Because I didn't ask you, and that's really important to get consent even for asking these kinds of questions, because these could be very invasive to a lot of trans people.
Oh, absolutely, and I greatly appreciate you asking me for consent of these subjects. But top surgery is definitely my next goal.
Okay.
However, financially and then insurance-wise, not a whole lot of people accept insurance anymore for top surgery. A lot of it is private pay, and having $10,000 to $15,000 in like a bank account somewhere for people that live paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
It's just a non-feasible option at this point.
That's odd that you mentioned the insurance coverage, because when I was younger, nobody assumed that it would be covered by insurance, right? We all worked several jobs or paid, paid off credit cards in order to do it, and then people did a lot of activism to make sure that people who were coming behind us, whether that's a college environment with their student insurance, or work environments, working for the state, working for cities, working for private companies, whatever, that y'all got the insurance coverage. But what you're saying is, I have a little bee there.
Yeah, you do.
This
It's a little friend.
It's checking me out. That's all right. That's all right. As long as it doesn't ding me, that's good. Okay. Well, the bee decided to make another home instead of my head. So we were talking a little bit about surgery and insurance coverage, and I thought things were getting better in terms of insurance because of all the activism, and a lot more insurance companies were actually offering coverage. But from what you're saying, it's gone kind of backwards.
Oh, absolutely. It's gone backwards.
So is that driven by the care providers themselves, or is that more of the insurance companies? What's going on
That's
there?
actually more by the insurance companies versus providers.
Okay. So insurance companies For a while we're covering it, and now they're going backwards and not covering it.
Yes.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, for example, I am on Medicaid. I'm on state insurance.
Yes.
Idaho just passed a bill a couple of weeks ago now making it illegal to cover gender affirming care.
Okay.
So testosterone, estrogen, any kind of surgical related procedure.
How about therapy?
No.
Okay.
No therapy.
Wow.
Anything that revolves around being different or a trans person, they no longer want to pay for.
Wow. And a lot of, like when we're thinking about therapy too, that's a place where people can figure things out. Mm-hmm. People aren't necessarily trans when they go to therapy. Maybe they have some identity issues, gender issues, and they remain like a cisgendered person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a very strange thing not to allow therapy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole thing is Idaho is trying to sit there and say this is for the minors, but they're also targeting the adults, and they're not letting that be known enough.
Okay. All right. Do any activists have like I don't know, press contacts that they're involved with, or is there just not a good bridge between the trans community and the press?
We actually have a couple of advocates here in Idaho that are at every single meeting.
Okay.
But,
you mean like testifying?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, Idaho has also started to making these events not public anymore.
Oh, really?
When it comes to gender affirming care.
How can they do that?
They have been signing things in their chambers instead of these people need their voices to be heard.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of having a legislature. You have a public gallery, and then you have, oftentimes there are, when I've been to public meetings like this, meetings that are supposed to be public by the government, there's usually a period that is unstructured where you can say whatever you want that's not on the agenda. You can talk about local issues. And then there's agenda issues that you get to speak on.
Yeah.
Because they are passing laws about the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. And one of them...
That's crazy.
It is crazy. The most recent thing was the library thing. I don't know if you've heard about it.
No.
Okay, so what's going on right now in Idaho is there was a bill just signed that the libraries are to pull every single piece of literature that is LGBTQIA related.
What?
And the librarians are actually on the table to be fined $250 if a minor is provided any materials revolving an LGBTQIA resource.
Wow. I'm just stunned by that, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that here in Idaho there's a supermajority
Yes.
of conservatives.
Oh, absolutely.
So they can get away with passing resolutions or bills like this. Mm-hmm. But then is there any legal challenge to it?
The ACLU has been involved in saying what's happening here is an atrocity.
Yeah.
But right now, there's no movement, so we're just in a standstill.
Okay. Are you, when you say there's no movement, what do you mean by that?
Right now, there's not enough research, and they need to do more deep digging to see what's going on and what's causing all of these restrictive laws to be put in place over us.
Okay. Well, there's that point of view, but which is kind of more of a long-term look at a problem, right? But there's kind of also the immediate action that, I don't know, lawyers possibly, or lobbyists of various sorts can take to maybe stop this. Mm-hmm. Are any groups involved, like perhaps the ACLU or?
From what I know, the ACLU is just now starting to get involved.
Okay. Well, at least they are.
Yeah.
Is that the state or the state version, or is that more like the national?
I think
version?
it's a national one.
Okay. So they bumped that up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Idaho needs some. Idaho, the people who live here need some defending against their lawmakers.
Oh, absolutely. Like, there's so many people here for gender affirming care and LGBTQIA stuff, especially in the Boise area. And no voices are being heard except for the ones who are against it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I heard too that even though this is a more welcoming place, it is where the capital is. By the way. So it's kind of a mixed bag, right?
yeah.
But also people come in from other areas who are kind of arch conservatives, or they are very just far right, like fascists.
Yeah.
I've heard that that's also something that happens. Have you seen that sort of thing?
Here in Boise, not so much, but the further outside of Boise you go, I have seen that.
Okay. Like possibly Meridian or Nampa.
Yeah,
places
Nampa,
like
Caldwell.
that. Okay. Those aren't that far away though. That's a pretty short drive.
Yeah, I actually reside in Caldwell, but work down here in Boise. So.
Is that because it's less expensive, or is that where you're from? Or?
Less expensive.
Okay, yeah.
Commute is a lot easier, so.
Okay. What's the transportation here like, by the way? Is there any public transportation?
Absolutely. Boise is set up for public transportation. And then you also got Uber and Lyft and all sorts of those companies. And if you're needing help getting to medical appointments, there's actually medical transportation companies that will actually come and get you to take you to those if you need help or assistance. So.
Okay. Because I notice a lot in these, what I call, red states or whatever, sometimes the public transportation is pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
Like, forget the schedule, just throw that away. I remember I lived in Houston, Texas when I was a teenager, and I would just go out to a bus stop and just wait there for hours.
Yeah.
Is a bus coming? I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
But
I know out in Caldwell, there's only 1 or 2 lines that run.
Oh, 1 or 2. Okay.
Yeah, so not many. So if you miss those buses, you're kind of SOL.
Okay.
But
are those like commuter lines?
yes, they are.
Okay.
They're commuter lines.
So during the commute times.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So did you live here in Boise at some point and move out there, or was that kind of your first stop?
I actually lived in Twin Falls.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I lived in Twin Falls.
Why Twin Falls?
Believe it or not, when we were researching places to live, me and my partner were both trans.
Yeah.
They're trans female, I'm trans male.
Oh, awesome.
So we were Googling because we lived in California I did anyways, for 9 months. They were born and raised California, Southern California.
Oh, no, those Californians.
Oh, that's what Idaho is all about, is the Californians. And they're coming to ruin us.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm just sitting here like, oh my goodness, be quiet.
I heard that there was a huge incursion of conservative people from Arizona coming here.
There is too.
Yeah.
Like
so
Arizona, Texas.
You can't blame it all on the Californians.
No, it's not all Californians.
But anyway, so back to Twin Falls. That was your first stop.
That was our first stop because when we were in California looking at places to move, it actually said that Twin Falls was a very progressive place. And I was like, you lied to me.
Oh, my goodness. Twin Falls is not progressive. It's a beautiful place.
It's beautiful.
The Snake River goes through there, and you see those sweet little canyons and whatnot.
The Shoshone Falls.
So picturesque.
Yes.
The farmlands and all that, and all the cattle and the horses. And I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. But
there is always a but at the end of that statement.
Yeah, it is very conservative. In fact, I talked with an activist who is very active there, very out, quite a firebrand, and they get regular threats.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of the reason we ended up leaving Twin Falls.
Even just going out for like a picnic.
Yeah.
Like here, you and I just meeting, who knows, maybe there'd be people who would show up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
In the time I lived in Twin Falls myself, I had my legal name and gender changed in Twin Falls.
Okay.
And who reads the newspaper, kind of thing. But in Idaho, you have to publish your name, your old name, what you're changing it to, and the reason you're changing it. And it has to be publicized for a minimum, I think
Actually,
it is.
Stop. This is too much. This is buzzing. Fucking me. Shit. Okay, we had to take a break because all of the city workers of Boise decided to show up with their stinky trucks. And they're still working in the background, and there's a lot going on. So anyway, there's going to be some background noise. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about Twin Falls.
Yeah, I was talking about
The
Twin
exciting metropolis of Twin Falls. Yeah.
but we were discussing my name change stuff.
Yes. Actually, could you move over a little bit?
Yeah.
Too? Yeah. We keep the sun keeps moving, and
Here
we keep
comes
having
our
to
truck.
move.
I hear it.
Okay. Okay. Twin Falls.
Yeah, we were talking about my name change.
Yes.
And the name change process here in Idaho is to have your information published in a newspaper.
And that's a state statute.
That is a state statute.
That's so ugly.
And so you got to list your old name, the name that you're changing it to, and the reason that you're changing it.
Great.
So I had to basically list.
That opens people up to stalking and abuse.
Absolutely. I had to list all of that information publicly, saying that I was transitioning from female to male, and that is why I was requesting my name change. And
is there any loophole, like if you are a domestic violence survivor or stalking or something like that?
Unfortunately, there's no loopholes here.
Oh, wow. Because some states will allow people to be more private, even though the state statute or county or whatever says you have to publicly announce it.
No. Unfortunately, there's no loopholes here.
Oh, this is such a harsh place. It's amazing. There's so much, punishment for doing things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I had to publish, hey, this is my name, this is what I'm going to, and this is the reason why, and it had to be published, I think it was 2 to 4 weeks. So it's cycling.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at one of our biggest advocates here in the Boise Twin Falls area, and I was like, if anything bad is going to happen, it's going to be me. Somebody's going to show up for me, because people are allowed to come and object to your name change here in Idaho.
Oh, so so the process is you apply, it gets published in the newspaper for a month, over and over and over again. And then you go to court. So people could show up and say no.
Oh, yes.
People
absolutely.
in the public. So why would somebody in the public have any right to say what you could do with your identity? I mean, it's...
and I was just looking for support, and I was like... And they reached out to me, and they're like, I will come to your name change hearing. It's usually smooth.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. I was like, but...
So
no.
you reached out to other trans people or queer people, and some people showed up.
Yeah, some people did show up.
Great.
Because I was like, I need support right now.
Yeah.
And he's a big advocate in the area, and I was like... He offered. He was like, do you want me to come?
Yeah.
I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
I need this right now. And I was like, if anything happens, it's going to be to me, because that is just my track record.
Okay. So you have some bad luck about stuff. Yeah.
Negative likes to come once in a while. And
well, who knows? Maybe it's because you can deal with it very well or something.
Maybe because I don't tolerate the negativity, and I try to let it slide the best that I can.
Yeah.
And somebody actually did show up to object to my name change.
That is so obnoxious. That's so arrogant to show up and bar somebody from changing their name.
Oh,
that's crazy.
I know. It is crazy. And the thing
what kind of person was this, by the way?
This was an older gentleman, I would believe in his 70s.
Okay.
70s, 80s. He came in with a briefcase, and he had a hospital band on his wrist. And I looked at my...
So he made some effort.
Oh, he made some effort to be there that day.
Wow.
And I was very confused and empathetic towards this old man, because I thought he was there for some other reason, because you don't know who exactly is there for what.
Sure.
Because the judge heard 5 or 6 things within that same time bracket. I was the only name change that day. Everything else had to do with estate stuff. So I thought maybe
property.
He was a part of an estate hearing. And I was like, oh, I feel so bad for him. He just had to get out of the hospital. He still has his band on, has his briefcase. We go into the courtroom, and they get through the 5 cases before mine. And they were like, I hear that there is an objection, and this is coming from the judge. And this was in 2020.
Wow.
So we had to physically be present in the courtroom at that time,
Yeah.
but the judges were off of Zoom, so it was a
Okay.
computer telecommunication thing for them.
Wow.
And I was like, objection. And I'm petrified.
Yeah.
I am scared. And I'm
Because
like,
you're fairly new
Yeah.
to that area, so
Yeah.
it's not like you know people who would actually object. So this is just some random stranger.
yeah, random stranger. And never met this man, never seen him a day in my life. And the judge asked me to come closer to the camera and give the reasons on why I'm changing my name and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And he's like, okay, now we have to hear the objection side.
Oh, jeez.
And so my back is towards this man. He's standing behind me. And he's basically reciting old copyright laws of vehicles. And you can't make a Toyota a Chevy by switching the emblems. No matter what, they're still going to be that other manufacturer. They're not going to be able.
It sounds like a joke, but
It does.
it's,
It sounds like
it's
a very
really,
bad joke.
It's really not. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, he starts bringing up, like, God doesn't make mistakes, starts pulling things out of the Bible and,
Misusing the Bible.
yeah, misusing.
Yeah.
And the judge looks at him and says, you know what, I'm just going to stop you right now because you don't have a valid reason to object the name change process. And people like Miles deserve rights and have rights.
Wow.
So,
Great.
and
Yeah,
he-
and people change their names all the time.
yeah, and
you
it's
know.
not just for transitional purposes.
Yeah, women who get married or people who blend families and they hyphenate their names.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
So the judge goes ahead and grants my name change. And I remember just walking out of the courtroom, like literally shaking and crying and everything.
Did they give you a
else.
copy or did that come later?
That comes later
Okay.
because he was, like I said, off of Zoom and he needs to sign it
Sure.
officially and then
Sure.
it has to get certified.
That must be so weird to have a court proceeding by Zoom. I know that's becoming, since COVID, lots of things have moved on to kind of like this virtual format. And, you know, I'm glad that the judge was very formal and just said this person has rights. But oftentimes there is more of a subjective component
Yeah.
that comes into play because that's what a judge looks at. They looked at the objective stuff, but they also look at the more subjective things,
Yeah.
like how somebody is presenting themselves. That's why people, when they go in for criminal proceedings, even if they've never worn a suit in their whole life, they'll dress up in a suit, for
Yeah.
instance. So when I think of something being more remote, there's less of like a personal component to it. Were you at all scared of that? Like because the judge couldn't really see you except through a camera, or
No, not really. I
No.
went in there pretty confident. Like,
Okay.
Made sure I looked my best.
okay,
Made sure, you know, my supporters were there and
Okay.
present before going in.
yeah.
You know.
Did the judge have a view of the whole
Yes,
courtroom?
he
Okay,
did.
okay. So he could probably see the supporters.
Yeah,
and-
absolutely. And probably noticed like my body language shifting from being happy to finally get this done and out of the way to,
Yeah.
oh my God, what's going on?
yeah, right, right.
Because,
I've never actually heard of somebody showing up. This is
Yeah.
the first time I've ever heard of that.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's very rare apparently. And the advocate in the area was like, I've never seen anybody come to an object
Yeah.
a name change before.
Right. Wow. You set a legal precedent there.
Yeah. I was like, I'll be the
some sort.
first.
Wow. Well, yeah, and you'll be some footnote in a legal document somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, have you been involved in any? So, this is a very personal kind of activism,
Yeah.
right? That you did basically. I mean, you stood up in court and you were there when somebody objected. That's actually a form of activism because you survived it.
Yeah,
you were a
absolutely.
trans person surviving something like this. Yeah. Have you been involved in any other kinds of activism locally?
Locally, no, not yet, because I am kind of new-ish to the Boise area still.
Yeah.
I just moved here in August.
Oh, okay. Very new.
So hasn't
Yes.
even been like 8 months-ish yet. So.
And what I've heard too is that locally people are kind of stepping back a little bit for safety, and also, like you said earlier, to kind of assess what's going on. Like, how is this really going to play out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've talked to numerous people who were really big into the advocacy here, who are basically hiding in fear right now.
Okay.
And
Wow.
a lot of them are Twin Falls based people that used to come up here.
Okay.
That are like, people know who we are now.
Okay, yeah. Right.
And we need to take a little step back due to safety concerns.
Yeah. And especially too if you get on the internet or if you do public testimonies, those are part of the public record. That's searchable. Yeah.
And it will always be there.
Yeah, that's right. And there's power in that, but also in bad times it can be used, for stalking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Stalking, harassment, threats, the whole 9 yards. A couple of the people that are in Twin Falls who are fearing for their safety have been physically threatened.
Yeah.
Like gotten into physical altercations with grown men.
Wow.
And they're trans femme or trans masc. It doesn't matter. Hate doesn't have any bounds.
Yeah.
It's not just towards a specific person, but hate is definitely one of those things I believe is a taught behavior. But they're totally.
But people really go for it.
They do.
When they have that in their hearts, they go for it, and oftentimes, they use their power, whether that's physical strength, power in numbers, power of the law.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of ways to try and oppress somebody else. Yeah.
Their target is to destroy or tear down as much as they can, so that person will stop living the way that they're currently in. So.
Yeah.
I also have a friend up this way who has been physically and verbally assaulted as a trans masc individual. And
is just out in public around
yeah,
town?
out in public.
Okay. Wow.
Would go to a restaurant and have literally somebody just come up to them.
Wow.
Like that bad.
Yeah, people are pretty bold here. Also, they're really bold about being overtly racist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like they'll say all the words just out in public. No shame, no nothing.
Nonchalant. Like.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. It's really bad here.
Yeah. And if you don't agree with them, then you're in the wrong. That is their immediate thing. Like, immediate first reaction, anger. You're different than me. I don't like that you're different from me, so I'm going to make it uneasy for you.
So, what keeps you here?
What's keeping me here currently is finances.
Okay.
I unfortunately don't have the funds to just pick up and relocate.
Right.
A lot of us, unfortunately, don't have the resources able to do that. I do call Twin Falls what we call a trap area. It's where they intentionally keep the wages lower and the housing and everything else skyrocketed. So you're not able to afford to get out. But I lived there for close to 5 years, and the issues that are happening there is that the wages are too low and everything else is skyrocketed. So you feel stuck. You're financially stuck.
Okay. So why did everything else skyrocket? Is that just since
That's
COVID?
COVID.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Since
yeah.
COVID. I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Twin Falls, $600 a month.
Okay. That's pretty good.
And it was 800 square feet, so spacious.
Yeah, yeah.
It's what I needed at the time.
Right.
Same apartment right now is going for roughly $1,400. So.
Wow. Like 2.5 times now.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So imagining, having
And
to
wages
afford.
wages didn't go up all that much.
Wages never went up.
Okay. Wow.
When I lived,
And it's a farming community, so
It is.
there's some retail there, but there's not a lot going on other than that.
no, in my time working in Twin Falls, I worked at Walmart for a while.
And they are notorious for
Yeah.
paying low wages and not giving benefits, and like keeping your hours underneath.
Low.
Yeah.
They'll cut it back at the end of the year,
Yeah.
like around the holiday season. So, hey,
Yeah.
we're only putting you on the schedule one day a week.
Yeah, interestingly, they bring a lot of temp workers during that time.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Walmart, I worked for. Planet Fitness is another one. Kohl's. And the one that I actually left to come up here, I was actually a child caretaker at a facility down there.
Okay.
I was an infant room specialist or caretaker. And even doing that and working with children all day long, and the wages I was getting paid for, and the mental stuff, the mental exhaustion.
Right. Dealing with a lot of children
yeah.
at once is...
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
And
Even for the mothers of the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was only making $9 an hour working with infants all day long, and I dealt with some infants that were addicted to drugs, born addicted. I dealt with infants that had physical disabilities like hip dysplasia and having full body casts on the lower half of their body.
Wow.
So,
that is not a lot of compensation.
No, it's not a
for
lot of-
what sounds like really difficult work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you have to be skilled.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is a skilled profession, but you have to be skilled
You
anyway
do.
to be able to do this work.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly couldn't do it. I wouldn't have the patience or the energy to do it.
And at any moment in my care, to Idaho standards, I can have 6 infants to myself.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So if you can imagine, 6 infants all have different special needs and or quirks about them.
Yeah.
And you're by yourself
Wow. Yeah.
for a $9 an hour job. Just barely able to make
Idaho
bills
is,
meet.
Idaho is a strange place.
It is.
It's like they're very hands off, but then not only hands off, they will actually do harm.
Yeah.
And not look after the most vulnerable, and not offer services for people who are disabled. And I mean, crazy.
Yeah, I do see Idaho as being the exploit of people.
Huh.
That is just how I view it when it comes to like finances. Idaho is still at federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour.
Yeah, right.
We have not
a
had
lot of
an
places.
increase.
A lot of places are like that, unfortunately. I dare anybody, any person making decisions like this, any legislature, any senator, whatever, any part of government, try and live off that kind of money for
absolutely.
even a week, and see what happens to you.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely, because I struggle and I'm one person.
Yeah. Right.
And then I also lived in an RV trailer instead of an actual house. That's how I became displaced during COVID.
Right. And then I'm sure they have laws around that as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Like, technically, I'm homeless. I
Right.
don't even have a home, even though I have a roof over
Right.
my head and I have
Right.
electric, water, and all that stuff.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
to federal standards, I'm homeless.
Right. And of course, like the laws that, zoning laws or whatever, or no parking, maybe you get like a citation or something like that. It's always punishment upon punishment just for being poor.
Oh, absolutely.
And the poverty comes from the situation itself. It comes from the bad decisions that are being made, by corporations, by the government, which are often hand in hand. And then, the people who live here actually suffer. It's just, it's wild.
And then you sit there and you reach out to programs to help you, like plasma donation centers are huge here.
Yeah. But then you also need a stable address.
Yeah, they won't let us donate.
Yeah.
We're ineligible because our home is mobile.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, but I lived in the same area for 4 years. Doesn't matter. You can get up and leave and go to another plasma center somewhere else.
Okay.
That is their concern.
All right. Okay.